Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Cherry Chen. I am your marketing chair on the EOTO Toronto board, and I'm also the host for today. I run two accounting firms, one focused on real estate investors, the other one focused on nonprofit organizations. Last year, I helped EOTO Toronto host an event on how to purchase a business. And I promised Jackie over there that I would create a sequel that is on how to sell a business for top dollars. And here we are today. Hosting these events has been very, very rewarding, but also very stressful because I need to connect with a lot of members to create this event. So thank you so much for coming and joining us today. So we're going to start with, I'll give you a brief agenda. So we will have our BDC Megan to present first, and then we will have Q&A at the end of her presentation. And then afterwards, we're going to have a 15-minute break? So we will have a 15-minute break, and then we will have our four panelists, four fellow Yale members who sold their business over the last few years to share their experience. And this whole panel will be moderated also by our fellow member, Sonia, over there. So, and then at the end, we would also have a half-hour conversation Q&A session. So, are we all good with all that? Yep. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So, let me introduce Megan Roa, the client manager for BDC today. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation today. So I am from BDC, which I know a lot of us just go to for financing, but I would like to say our best kept secret is the advisory side. And BDC obviously has been around for a while supporting entrepreneurs, and financing was how we came into it, right? We're like, okay, what are some ways we can make sure that entrepreneurs are getting the support they need? And number one, we all want money, and it's been a really great experience. But about 40 years after that, we were looking for other ways we can support businesses. That's when the advisory side really kicked in. So while we get to have conversations about, hey, how are we going to finance a business transition? How are we financing a purchase? The real estate aspect of it, the assets. We also started having these conversations on how can we support everything else that's around the actual financial transaction. I mean, that really, truly, while we can focus on the number of it all, and that can be what excites us, or that can be the goal that we're working towards, it really only is one piece of a larger puzzle, and more often than not, that puzzle and that number only comes together at the end when everything else is clicked into place. So today, hopefully we get a chance to talk about what everything else really looks like. I'm the client partner in Toronto for advisory services, so while I have a huge team of individuals, different business advisors, delivery consultants, that support me, I'm always here to have those conversations, even early on when you're not really sure if you want to sell, buy, break it up into little pieces, give it to your favorite kid, or whatever. Right? Happy to have conversations around that and a lot more. But something that I've learned, at least from my time here, is that this isn't really a one-size-fits-all conversation. I wish I could give all of you just a perfect formula that you could walk away from and go and find yourself doubling, tripling the value of your company. It's never always that easy, but the hope today is that we give ourselves the opportunity to start thinking about what it really takes to start taking those next steps, and maybe take away those few points where we can already start working away, chipping away at some of the mountain that's ahead of us. And then my favorite part is I encourage you all to participate, ask questions, even throughout, and even share your experiences, because I can talk forever, but there could be something that someone says, and then there could be another conversation point that really resonates, and I don't want you to miss out on that opportunity. From my experience, some of you have had your own varying experiences in the space, so feel free to chip in. But as we do get started, just a loose agenda for today is we'll talk a little bit about what business transition looks like, all things. I know we specifically wanted to talk about how we could sell our business for top dollars, aka be on the sell side, but I think it's always important to consider some of the other various transition scenarios, which in some of your position, you could be thinking about selling your business, but that might be something 10 years down the line. 3 years down the line, you might be actually wanting to pick up another business, and that's what's going to help you get to the number you want at the end of the day. So lovely to have those conversations as well. But also, when we're thinking about selling our own business, sometimes it helps to put ourselves in the other seat and be like, what is the value of the business that sellers are going to see? What are they looking at when they look at purchasing Megan Aurora Incorporated? Is it the asset classes? Is it my real estate? Is it this? Is it that? And that can always help you see some of the blind spots that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to think about just now. In other cases, you might have some members of your family who are looking to maybe take a part in the next generation of the business. So that's always a welcome conversation. It might be a bit tiered, you might want to sell part of your business to a really great employee, but maybe, save a little piece of the pie for some of your family members. So like I said, not a one size fits all, but that's kind of the beauty of what we're getting to chat about. You guys will inevitably drive whatever comes next. Usually though, that journey is best told once there's a transition plan underway. So whether you end up doing that on your own, whether you work with your management team, whether you work with an external firm, that transition plan really can help drive the success. So hopefully we'll get to talk about what that looks like. So today, when we talk about business transition, that can include anything like a change of ownership. It can be a change of structure within your company. In certain scenarios, you might split your company into two. In other scenarios, you might be selling off certain asset classes. So transition can look like a lot of different things. And again, your journey might be one giant transaction, or it might be multiple different ones along the way. So keep that in mind when you ask your questions or when you think about the pieces that build this beautiful puzzle. Now, another reason we're having these conversations right now, and probably why I end up having them once or twice a day, is because about 37% of our entrepreneurs are over 55 years old. And over 55. So some of them are 60, some of them are 65, and they meant to sell yesterday. There's a lot of great opportunities in the market. There's also some competition out there in the market. And that's where I mean, with the changing landscape, with all of the entrepreneurs that are maybe looking for the next stage of their life, there's a lot going on. Another thing that I think is driving a lot of this conversation today is we're in a pretty crazy macroeconomic situation. Things change literally every day. I don't know why I was reading the news on a Saturday night, but it changes, what type of buyers might be looking to buy our business. I've had several clients talk about how they were looking at international firms that were coming in to buy their business who might not be as keen just due to what's going on, right? So a lot of approaches have changed. In other scenarios, people might be really anxious to just get out of the market. So there's also now a lot of businesses coming up at quite a steal. And I really believe that's part of why this is such a compelling conversation these days. And it's something that we get to all keep in mind. I mean, looking around, everyone looks really young. It looks like there's a lot down the road. So it's going to be interesting to see how this potentially shapes your strategy. I'm convinced that half of you who are ready to buy, who are ready to sell might walk out of here thinking, okay, maybe it's actually time to buy right now. So I'll be intrigued to see what that looks like. Actually, with that being said, how many of you, just a show of hands, have considered selling your business in the next 3 to 5 years? Okay, awesome. And then you can raise your hand again because, like I said, various options. But how many of you have considered maybe buying a business in the next 3 to 5 years? Okay, so honestly, did see some same hands go up, and I also saw probably a good 50-50 split. And then out of that, are any of you looking at maybe having some of your employees do a management buyout or an employee share takeover? Awesome. A couple. And then any of you looking at something like family succession? Okay, cool. I will say an interesting observation through some of my recent opportunities to chat with everyone is that a lot of people used to be in the family succession route and now have started looking elsewhere, maybe third party. So it's really interesting to see how statistics have been changing and how even just the trends, right? Like growing up, my mom was convinced I was going to be an accountant, take over the family business, and when I wasn't, you would have thought I dropped out of school and started some illegal activity. I was like, Mom, it's okay. But that really was the only path for a while. So now that we're looking at these different opportunities, that's where we're starting to see the need for a lot more active conversation. Not that we didn't need it before, but a lot of these pain points have come around the fact that we're all humans at the end of the day. We've spent a lot of time building our business, and we really do have a vision for what that looks like, even when we're not involved. And it's a complex emotional process, which, look, at the end of the day, I can stand here and say, hey, once you sell your business for $15 million, like, take it and go. Like, don't worry about it, right? But it's not that straightforward. It never has been. And those conversations I have seen drive, I know, and I've seen them drive a lot of transactions to, like, just off a cliff for an emotional reason. But it's there, and while none of us can act as each other's therapists, or at least I'm not licensed to, it would be remiss to not have that understanding amongst yourself, because it can drive things like, hey, maybe I'm going to operate my business currently knowing that this holdco is going to be operating the brand, but that everything else with my assets are here. So come time to sell, I can preserve the branding of the business and the legacy, but I can also still sell a good chunk of it for whatever my next vacation looks like. No wrong answers, but you wouldn't get there if you didn't be a bit real with yourself. Other than that, I know we don't have too many family successions, but even with employees, a lot of the successors, we might think that they're ready to take over us, our positions, but at the end of the day, there's a lot more that goes down into it. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they make the choices that let them keep all of their knowledge up here. And that becomes really tricky when we're going through succession, because they've never actually stepped back long enough to see how things run without them. Another added perspective to that is, I was having a conversation with a client just a few days ago, and they wanted to buy a business because they wanted to get into that market. They didn't do enough of a job evaluating where the relationships of their biggest potential customers lie. And in those cases, the people were only indebted and obligated to work with the actual entrepreneur. Once that sale would have been over, the entrepreneur would have potentially moved on to whatever looks next. There's no reason for these customers to stay. And even if they had sold it to a third party, if they had transferred it down the line in their own business, there was no saying why those individuals would stick around. So I really encourage all of you, especially when you're looking what your management team looks like, what leadership looks like, bring on your second in command more often than you think you need to, because that might be exactly where the value of your company lies. And as nice as it would be to take off and leave on your own, you might not be doing the same service of actually leaving your company with the right tools to continue on having the success that they had. On the flip side, to my buyers, that's a really important thing to consider. It can be really difficult to come in and understand how sticky some of these contracts are. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, if you're buying a business, you're buying it for a certain reason, right? What are you buying? Are you buying the book of business? Are you buying the real estate assets? Are you buying access to a market? Maybe you're buying some of their top engineers that they have. But if you don't have a specific plan to de-risk all of those scenarios, same question, what are you buying? You're buying a whole lot of risk and a whole lot of potential to not be able to pay back some of the decisions you made. So lots of interesting pain points that are surrounding there. But there's this great stat that says there's about to be a $2 trillion wealth transfer. So you don't want to be on the other side of being unprepared and your piece of the pie looks smaller than it needed to. Honestly, I've really talked to a lot of business owners, and it does say that even though 26% of them have looked to sell in the next 3 years, a lot of them haven't done the due diligence to set up that plan. And rarely are you going to be able to make a decision for your business today that shows up tomorrow. We've all tried it. Unfortunately, it takes a little bit longer. So again, encourage you to look at your specific pain points, figure out where that lies. Another one I wanted to talk about, I know we didn't talk too much about employees buying into the business, but this is something that I honestly don't know we talk about enough, is that's a conversation that's worth having, because sometimes we don't know if our employees actually want to go and take a step up because they don't know that they have the option to, right? As an employee, I personally, not that I could buy BDC because it's a ground bar, but I certainly don't get paid enough to. So I don't see that happening where I could just come up with the bag that I need to make the purchase happen. I would have to find a multitude of different options to finance. And again, that's not something I could do overnight. Maybe I'll be calling up my dad to be like, hey, my birthday's coming up. Maybe I will be looking to friends and family for investment. Maybe I'm going to have to put up some of my own personal assets to get a loan from the bank that can do that. But as someone who's looking to sell your business, that's a conversation you want to have, because if your team wants to take over, if they want to take that next step, that might be a very viable succession plan. But you want to have those conversations on how can we finance this? Is a vendor take back the right way to go about it? So all of these things, I encourage you to have open conversations with your management team, leadership, and see what comes from it, because it might surprise you.
I'm curious about like the ESOP model, which I've heard about, and if you have any familiarity, if you could speak to that.
I know that personally, and we'll get a little bit onto the BDC side of things, we have a lot of our consultants that are trained in that model, and ESOP, it's specifically in the scenarios where your employees are part of your succession plan and buying into the business. So it is a really, really strong consideration these days, especially now that I think family succession is a bit less. So I'm happy to even recommend some resources for that, because I know we've been talking about selling to third parties, but this is something that even before you get on that track is important. Something that I have noticed, I don't have the exact statistics on it, but when you're selling your business, it matters who you're selling it to, because at the end of the day, like, I don't know anything about cars. You can put the shiniest car in front of me, I won't know how to value it. Similarly, people who are in your industry typically can value your business at a higher multiple, and they're able to take the most advantage of some of the synergies that are to come. And you see that similarly when you have employees internally. You'll get a better bang for your buck, so to speak, than if you're going outside. And there's a lot of private equity firms that are out there willing to come in, but are they going to give you the best number often? No, you're getting the best number from the people who are already in your industry, especially when people are doing things like roll-ups. So it's definitely an important conversation point. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm a very talky girl and a less slide girl, so if there's anything that I skim over time-wise that you want to touch base on, just let me know and I can find ourselves back here. Now, talked about it, but the finances are really some of the most shiny, but not always the most operative aspect when it comes to selling your business. We all want to get the highest possible price, especially when we've worked years and years, spent probably more hours than we can count or that we've clocked in. But there's a lot of different assets that you're essentially protecting. And we've touched on a lot of these, but really to reiterate, there's a lot of key players that make up your business. One is your employees, right? If you're selling your business, you want to make sure that you're able to you're gonna get the highest value if your employees are able to actually stick around. If they're actually comfortable going through this change, and if they're also set up to be supported throughout it. And that's why we say we have this conversation 3 to 5 years before, because even for me, if someone picked up the phone and let me know that, hey, the company I'm working for is going through a massive change, that's a lot that I didn't necessarily sign up for. And that might be a lot for the seller to be betting on, right? Oh yeah, I'm gonna make sure all these people go. And these are your family members at the end of the day. I know we all want the best price, but you're only going to get that, like, good begets good. So when you're looking out for your people and you're looking out for the things that they're going to undergo, the management changes, the potential technology changes, it's a lot. And I've had a lot of conversations with business owners where they will say, oh, I'm looking to pick up another company. I'm probably going to need a bigger facility, but I don't want to move X far away because I've had employees for the last 10, 15 years, and they are the future of this company, so they need to be able to get to where they're going. Also had the opposite, right? Where business owners say, hey, I'm going through the same scenario. My employees are actually on their way out, but they need 5 years. So I need some sort of guarantee that this is going to make sense for 5 years. We can bring new people in, we'll get the right training done, and they can see a smooth transition out. But if you don't have those conversations, you might get to a scenario where you're ready to get a deal signed, you're talking to a buyer, and you're near the finish line, or at least a year into the process, and they bring someone in to start looking around. And when they start looking around, they don't like what they find. Hey, I know we said we should bid $5 million, but there's a really high chance 90% of these people are leaving, and this is what we need, so why are we bidding $5 million? Again, I had a recent conversation, and I've never seen my business advisor be so frank, but he was. We walked into the conversation, he said, that is the highest risk. That is the highest risk transaction I've seen. And if we do business further, we might not be able to talk them out of it, but that's going to be a problem. And it matters to us, because if we're working with anyone, and I know this is true for a lot of advisors, you guys are only going to be as satisfied by a transaction as the people that are supporting you. So if we look at something and we're like, this is not going to go well, we can only really help you 1 or 2 points. If we don't call it out early, of course you're going to be upset. So you want to have the right people around you to help make those assessments, even now, even early, so that when it gets down to it, you're able to make those right calls. And a lot of these due diligence processes, I've talked to companies where it's, they think, okay, I'm ready to sell, I'm going to do that, it's going to close in a few months, bada bing, bada boom. This is probably the most common thing, right? They call us in, okay, we have an LOI, we want to do this in 3 months. And then something, and then something, and then something. So a lot of these cases, due diligence can take 2 years, especially when it's a big transaction. And the last thing you want to do is have invested all of your time, energy, 1 year down the line, and then you're now having to re-uncover these. We talked a little bit about the various transition scenarios. I mentioned all of them, but this is just a great breakdown just for our reference point into how people are typically finding themselves right now. I think our split internally is a little bit different, but we're still seeing about 1 1/4 of all businesses go through a family succession. We're seeing about 23% do a bit of a management buyout, and then there's still half of that chunk that is selling externally. Unfortunately, there's also about the 17% that's closing and liquidating. And if you could ask me, that more often than not has to do with poor preparation, one way or the other. And we're in an interesting group of people because we're thinking about things from a buyer's perspective and a seller's perspective. So for a lot of you, as buyers, that right there presents a lot of opportunity. A lot of opportunity. We had a conversation with another client. They said, oh yeah, this other company, we're getting it for a steal because otherwise they were just gonna pack up and go. So anything he can get is better than nothing. For all of us looking to sell, that's not the position we want to be in. We don't want to be like, I'll take anything. Because there are scenarios where someone will come and they'll say, okay, how about 10 million? And you'll say no. And then next year they'll say, okay, how about 12 million? And you'll say no. And then you'll come around and you'll be like, okay, I'm ready to sell. And they'll be like, should have done it when I gave you 10 because now you're getting 5. That one hurts. That one hurts bad. Just out of curiosity, let's split, we can answer twice, but for those of you who've looked to buy a business, have you made any offers? Yeah? Hands? Yeah? And were those successful? No? Was it pricing?
No, they changed the price when it was maybe a month away from.
Yeah.
They I looked up the numbers again, we had a better year this year, we redid the numbers, we're gonna jack it up, and I was like, no thanks.
No thanks, yeah. How about yours?
No, ours didn't go through either, but for the other reason where they were delaying getting us numbers and information, and they were having worse and worse and worse months and quarters, and I was like, oh, we're good.
Yeah. Over here?
Just couldn't see eye on valuation.
On valuation? Got it. And it's tough because, we all want to assume we're going to be on an upwards trajectory. If we've played the stock market, we know that's usually not how it goes. But we definitely, especially when we're selling, we want to think about getting out at the highest point. You don't want to wait till you're on a steady decline, because in that process and that due diligence and those conversations, things can change. And I would rather someone, I'm happy you guys got the opportunity to back out when you saw what was in front of you than have to go through and see what was on the other side.
I do have a question about the numbers though.
Yes.
24 and 23 and
They don't
49.
add. Yeah. These are the scenarios.
I wasn't gonna bring it up.
No, there's scenarios because you could choose multiple responses. And I do believe, like I said, there's been different ways people have approached this, right? Even for myself, like my dad wants my brother to take over, but he has a really key employee that could really grow the business as well. So unless my brother really shows his worth in the next year or two, like, you know, everything's on the table. And it might really just be in the business's benefit to have 2-3 partners that are actively taking over and growing. So there's a few options out there. Yes.
How would a merger with two entities that are of different sizes, so one would need to come with funding and one wouldn't, how would that play into this?
When you say one would need to come with funding and the other wouldn't,
Sort of in the sense is that you have two entities and they're going to merge together.
yeah.
One is larger than the other, so the other, so in terms of like allocating shares and things like that, one might bring in investment
Yes.
into the collective because they're smaller.
They might. It depends on how
does
the
that play in?
asset.
Is there any research on that process?
There's not too much on that. I think that would be more of like put into the selling to the third party. But in those complex cases, when it does happen, and this is just some context for all of us here, is there's no rules on how a share transfer needs to go, right? You could sell your company to a bigger one, and then whatever the new entity is or the merged entity want like a smaller stake there. So it might not be something like you're getting an upfront payout, and so their financing could look a little bit different, and you could be seeing your compensation in terms of a different asset class, so to speak. So there's a lot that it can go into and how it can be broken down, which is great. We like options. It's a great place to be. I did want to turn the question around. For those who are looking to sell, have any of you gotten any offers? Thank you all for sharing. That really does help. Honestly, for me, like I was saying this earlier to Sherry, like this is a topic where I love what everybody has to say. So I appreciate that. It makes me very happy. Now, this top on the Reddit says family succession, but this is true of basically any sort of business transition scenario, except maybe the management buyout. But we generally find that 70% of business transitions fail between generations, and that has everything to do with preparedness, like every real thing. When it comes down to whether it's communication between the different stakeholders, whether it's the inadequate training. In other scenarios, people are not involving the next generation in preparation of these changes, especially on the family succession side. Like, we like to think, okay, well, I'm around, like they can call me whenever they need to answer a question, but what was the point? Like, if you're going to be answering every call, you didn't really hand over the business after all, did you? And at the end of the day, it's that succession plan that they don't have. We've had a lot of clients come to us, and they're running for the family business, and we'll have the older generation that helped form that business, and then the generation that's currently in place having these conversations. And most often than not, especially out of respect in so many spaces, the new younger generation will not say a word against what their parents have to say. Nothing. And then the second we get a chance to talk to them one-on-one, they're like, yeah, we actually totally want to go a different way. We're just getting a lot of pushback. And because our family is still in the picture and they're still here and they're still involved, like we can't, like we might have gotten the title or the name or the little nicer office, but we're not in charge here. We can't do anything. And that's really, truly a huge reason some of the failures can happen, because as business owners, like we need to set ourselves up to actually pass the baton, turn around, and go to Pearson. That's it. You have to turn your phone off and feel comfortable that things are happening without you. And that really might mean that for the last 3 to 5 years of your time being even an active CEO in your business, you're spending less and less time making those decisions. There's nothing wrong with that. If anything, that is exactly what a buyer wants to see. They want to know that, oh, he didn't show up this week and nothing changed. Like, we're still good to go. That is really when you'll get the highest valuation. But going back to us all being humans, that's one of the most difficult things. I've never raised a kid, but I am so terrified because I know that would be my one thing I would not be able to let go. And I know that your business is your baby, but we got to make sure we're not raising train wrecks here. So just as a pulse check, I've been talking for a bit, but are there any specific challenges that you're facing when you're thinking about business transition? Yeah? Saw a little nod.
For me, it's trust. I'm not thinking of selling necessarily or acquiring, but it's trust that what I'm buying is what is being presented.
Gotcha.
That's my biggest issue.
And that's a really, like, I'll talk about this a little bit later too, but this isn't something that you have to do on your own. In fact, you all are probably very good at running your business. But that doesn't mean you have to be really good at valuing another business. Like, that's a whole other industry, that's a whole career to have. And there are people from the lawyers, the accountants, the business valuators, the this, the that will help drive clarity. Just as a question I wanted to get for those, I don't think I asked this, but for those of you who haven't had any offers on your business, do you know what the value of your business currently is? Yeah? Any of you who have like no idea? You're like, I don't know if it's 1, 2, 3, 5. Yeah? So for the individuals who maybe have figured out what number they're looking at or what's likely to happen, what helped you get to that conclusion?
Benchmarks.
Sorry?
Benchmarks.
Benchmarks, like external benchmarks in the industry? Like a multiple, EBITDA multiple? That's a really good step, whether it's the industry multiple, whether it's getting a business valuator, that is really going to help you figure out like a health check, right? If you have a real estate agent, right, we can all think, okay, our house is going to be worth X amount of dollars, but we're not in charge of the market. And the first thing any of those good agents should be doing is they come in, they do a walkthrough for the house. They say, this really interesting shade of purple you have all over your walls might be impacting some things over here. The little mold and the caulking over there might be indicative of something else. And I might not be able to give you all the answers, but we gotta start digging, we gotta start looking. And hopefully you'll walk away with a few actionables, but you could still be left feeling really far away from what feels worth it. And I don't believe like anyone needs to settle for a certain price, right? Like if you're wanting a valuation, you want to sell your business for $20 million and you're getting 10, like I don't want to say boo-hoo, suck it up. I would rather help you guys find a road to making that 20 million more likely to happen and actually getting you the actionables. And the good part about it is that while there's not a one-size-fits-all for every single individual and what they want, there are some pretty solid best practices. And even if you don't go tell other buyers what that number will be, a lot of these valuators are using similar metrics and similar processes to get to that number. So, you know, we're in a hyper-educated economy. Like, everybody has ChatGPT to ask, what are the things I should be looking for? What are this? We're at a point where we know enough to build a better home for ourselves, but we also know how to make sure that we're able to present these certain areas a lot better. And you don't have to boast of like a perfect house by any means. It's easy to say like, yeah, everything's great, by the way, the deck might need to be replaced in 3 years. But it's better for you to know, factor it into the expectation of the valuation, or even be like, yeah, the deck needs to be replaced, it's gonna cost $10,000 if you do it with this type of material, and $15,000 if you do it with this type of material. Then walk up and be like, oh, the deck is rotting? Because that to any buyer is going to be like, okay, there's holes, let's keep looking, let's keep digging. And that's the exact thing that one weakness can really start poking that distrust that you've talked about, where, okay, if they're misrepresenting this, what else is going on that I don't know about, and is this something I feel sure about? You know what I mean? Are there any other potential challenges that just come to mind? Check how we're doing for time. I like to talk.
Finding the right buyer.
Oh, that's a really good one, actually, and it does come up. Finding a good buyer can be, another thing, right? Same house scenario. I want to sell my house. Well, if nobody wants to buy it, or if I don't know how to get to the right people, it can be really difficult. I do generally recommend, like I've kind of mentioned, there are people who will be able to value your space at its highest, and oftentimes that is in your industry. So I know we talk about these networking events and how valuable they can be for growing your business, but there's also the flip side. Like you might be going to an industry event and very well find the person that finds the synergies between your companies. It might be your competitor. And sometimes, from my understanding, these conversations aren't necessarily like, hey, I'm selling my business, are you interested? It just might be like a casual comment. And then someone picks up, oh, okay, like, have you figured out what that looks like? And oftentimes, a lot of these very successful transitions happen with a warm lead. It's not someone who's completely cold knocking on your door. So those are important things to consider, and there are a lot of different, I think, professionals that are also able to come in and they have the Rolodex that can support that. But at the end of the day, you're definitely much more likely to get a better deal when you have a few more buyers at your door than just one. So that's a really good one. We've talked a little bit about the plan, having a plan, why it's necessary to have one. I'm hoping a little bit of today's conversations have, poked some holes in like areas that maybe need a little bit more thinking, a little bit more fleshing out. But number one, obviously, if you are looking to buy, and also if you're looking to sell in both, the numbers are at the top, right? As much as I want like a nice $10 million house and I need to stop watching Selling Sunset, there's only so much I can go for. So I'm gonna need to know what that looks like. If you're buying, we talk about financing, so you're not throwing out that crazy number. You probably want to start socializing what that could look like. And I know especially at EOTO with our financing team, we are pretty good about helping you figure out what range you might land in if that's something you're curious about. Other banks are also really supportive in that. And then if you're selling, same thing. What's the number I want? What's the number I'm currently getting? And then when do I want out? Because if I want 20 million, it's looking at 10 million now, and I was hoping to be cool by the new year. It's a little crazy. So those are really big areas. But something you might also want to really sit down is, hey, I might want to sell this now, but I want to be around for the next 5 years. Like, keep me on as a consultant. I know my business. I know that it's in your best interest to still have me. And also, it's in my best interest to go from working 40 hours a week, or let's be honest, 70 hours a week, to 20, and then to 10, and then to 5, right? That seems more reasonable, and it's going to make it better. And maybe that is what I want, so I don't go home and get all cranky because I have nothing to do all day. That's a very valuable one. Same with ideal successor. Yes?
The higher your hourly rate, the less we'll call.
That's fair. But again, it's something you might want to be a part of, right? Like, this is still your legacy at the end of the day. There's no one saying there's a right or wrong answer. If you want to be involved for a little while longer, you should find a structure, or at least be very clear about what it is you're looking for. So that's an early conversation you're having. I think there was a question here.
I was just curious, because of the weakness of the dollar,
Mm-hmm.
geographically, are you seeing higher multiples from the U.S. and U.S. buyers relative to Canadian buyers?
I would say not necessarily. We're not necessarily also involved in the valuation process, especially from an international perspective. But I would say the uncertainty is the reason that's been less of a metric right now, or a variable, because people aren't sure where they want to expand into, and vice versa goes as well, right? Like, we have clients here who were really looking forward to expanding in the US and would have bought there, and now they're not, and it's not because of the dollar that they're not looking, it's just purely because of the uncertainty and the relationships, and they might go elsewhere. So I don't think the dollar has had the same impact because of those reasons. Another thing is, right now, unfortunately, we are seeing a lot more sellers in the market, one reason or the other, whether it's just the economy, they're not having, like, they were like, I'm going to leave in 5 years anyway, let me speed this up because things just aren't fun anymore, whatever it is. And some people are really tight cash flow wise. So I think it's, if anything, it has forced some of our multiples down, not up. Just moving on.
So in a situation like what he brings up,
Mhm.
where the market is not necessarily the best, what would you typically advise?
I mean, at the end of the day, like, that's speaking to potential international players. There's certain industries where others might find value in expanding, but what I'm seeing a little bit more of is people who are looking to drive a larger valuation are looking a little bit more within the border. So again, a lot of people have not been focusing maybe on international expansion, but they're focused on getting more market share within Canada. There's also been a lot of rearrangement of contracts. We used to be using our friendly, not so friendly neighbors as potential suppliers, and a lot of those contracts are now coming in. So all things considered, like, it's about resilience, and how can you make your business much more compelling to purchase or a bigger competitor in the market. And one way or the other, Canada still has a lot of untapped markets, and there's a lot more opportunity. So that's where the focus is really going. This is more, like, these are all areas we've talked about, priorities, but this is more for you guys to just take a picture, think about, sit at home, spend a Saturday, grab a glass of wine, and really just, like, think about what it looks like for the human factors of your business, what you're looking for. And again, if you're buying, like, people that you're acquiring, right? You want a culture fit for the people that are coming in. You want similar synergies if you're selling. There might be certain employees that are really key to retain and promote, and they will build the future of your business. They'll drive that valuation. There's tons of people, when they buy companies, they want to retain key talent. So at the end of the day, it's going to be your job on either side to platform the right people and make sure they're in the right seats to get to where you're going. Think about the strategic factors, What do you want as a seller? How often do you want to be involved? How long you want to be in there? And just, when I say, like, really take a Saturday and write it down, just don't think about it. Like, don't think about, oh, what's Megan going to think if I tell her this? Like, just write down what you want. And let that be a guiding form for whatever next conversation you have. Because, yes, talk dollars, but the whole point of this conversation is your business is more than just a number. There's these different factors that you want to evaluate. So let's be aware of them so we can build that better package. And yes, then think about the financing of it all. I encourage you all, if you're looking to sell or buy, either way, there's a lot of tax implications. So there have been scenarios where deals are really set up to go forward, and then there's some big tax implications they have to deal with, and it just, like, changes the time frame of the deal. It changes whether they want to go forward with it, and those are all things that a professional will be able to guide you on. So hopefully you can sneak in, like, an extra hour of free advice when you're going in for your annual anything, and see what that looks like. The rest of it, when it comes to the strategy plan, the transition, I'm just gonna move forward a little bit because we've talked about a lot of this. There's all of these aspects, right? The planning, the market research, the marketing when you're looking to sell, all of those areas, like, get the right people helping you. And it doesn't have to be internal, but those are areas that will drive just that little piece of the transaction. Again, house, right? Like, some of us don't turn the exhaust on when we're cooking. Next thing you know, there's mold buildup, which we didn't realize was going to affect us when we're ready to sell our house 5 years later. That's all part of the planning, but it's going to hit that transaction, that big number that we care about. And you don't have to know all of it. I don't know any of you, well, I mean, I know what some of you do, but, I don't expect any of you to be good at everything. Like, get the right people who are guiding those things, and at the end of the day, if you're a professional in one area, you already know the value that you bring and how hard it is to replace you. So think about all the people in those different seats that can help make this a better deal for you at the end of the day. And these are just, again, the types of people that you could see finding yourselves in the process. Go external for all of these. Business evaluator is different than a business advisor. They'll do different things. Don't feel like you need to collude the two of them. The evaluator will give you the numbers. They might not be great ones, but the business advisor might be able to guide you how to get to where you're going. And in my experience, and especially at least on our side, for advisory, we're happy to always collaborate with the different individuals. We're not going to go and do a lawyer's job, but we definitely want to know what they have to say so that we can factor it into our discussion. We had talked about a few of our barriers, so I wanted to see if some of them would come up, and I think some of them did, which is finding like a suitable buyer in terms of determining the value of the business, dependence on the company or the business owner, and of course the financing side of things. There's still a giant chunk of people who just don't even know where to start, which is okay too. You're better off having that conversation now. Let me do a quick time check.
We have 7 more minutes, including Q&A.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do a really quick, just because, you know, I probably should, but I just wanted you all to know that here at BDC, part of the joy that I get from talking to business owners about this is because we don't just get to talk about it, we do get to support them through a lot of that. So if any of you do have any questions and you're looking to get started on any of those aspects, like a conversation and more is often free. So we're able to support on the buy side, the sell side, if you're looking to do succession internally to a family member. And if it feels too early, there are things that are just like the bare bones, right? You might be like, I'm not ready to sell, but I definitely need to grow my business to get there. We can have a chat about that as well. All and everything is a great place to start. So that's always going to be my pleasure, and I'll make sure that my contact information gets circulated so you're able to do so. If by any chance you wanted to just drop in any of your thoughts, you can do so here, and you can also drop your email or anything you want, and I can just like set you up with some of the people that are way cooler than me and have been through several successions and transitions and selling and buying. So they're always a great compliment to anything that I have to offer, and I'm happy to just push you right over to them. Wanted to keep some time to chat. Any more questions? Tired of me? You want coffee or something?
I have a question. So what is the common multiples? I'm going to ask some like really basic question. What are the common multiples that you're seeing in the market for, I guess, business range with revenue from like $1 million all the way to $10 million?
So that can be a really industry specific question, but usually the multiple will be based on like an EBITDA multiple. There's some, like every industry might have ones that are like 2 to 3 times is what a private equity firm will give you, but like 4 to 6 times is what you might get from a buyer in the industry. So that's one of those scenarios where if you're not ready to go to a valuator, you can honestly like ChatGPT that. Hey, I'm in this industry, this is my revenue range, what's my multiple? And then take it back to your financials and look at it. And the reason I say that's a good place to start is because very often we don't want to open up, and that can feel really overwhelming and intimidating. I personally get nothing out of you guys like feeling too scared to even start. I would rather you have that internal conversation with you and your ChatGPT agent, figure it out, and then when you're ready to move on to the next step, you come have that conversation. A lot of times the 2 to 3 is what I see. That's like a good range, 2 to 3 times EBITDA, but there's some scenarios where your valuation is normal to get 1 times EBITDA, which is not a lot for some people, right? It depends. Another thing that really might factor into that multiple is what assets are going with the purchase. Like I said, you know, now we've had enough. I think before we didn't have this type of education or recommendations on how to structure our businesses, so sometimes everything would be in one company, in one package. But now a lot of people have gotten the advice where, okay, if you own a media company, but your media company is in a building that you've bought, maybe have a different company that owns the real estate and a different company that owns just the operations side of things. So in that scenario, if you're just selling one side of things, that might be the lower multiple that you're getting. In other scenarios, I've seen it when the whole package deal happens, you'll get a higher valuation, but it might be very biased towards the value of the real estate that you're getting, right? So there's a few factors there. Yeah.
If you get approached by someone that's on a buying business,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the best place to start? Do you just have a conversation with another entrepreneur? Do you reach out to?
I mean, I always think like there's no harm in ever having a conversation to entertain it. And a lot of individuals who started their succession journey started because someone threw a random number at them and they just, like you said, you're like, oh, this structure is something I didn't think about, and it'll start that conversation. But in other scenarios, I think it is very wise to always have a business advisor talk you through, especially that early side, because that early strategic planning, one, it'll ask you, what do you want, right? It doesn't matter what I give you, what do you want? And what are the different things that you need to be able to accountable for showing so that your potential buyer can feel comfortable at that number. Because I can come to you and say, oh yeah, I want to buy your business for $5 million, but have I seen your financial statements? Have I seen what your revenue looks like? Is your revenue realized consistently enough for me to step back and feel really confident? So when you have someone who's a little bit more generalized on the advisory front, they're able to look at those different factors and help you, one, structure your own internal stuff better, but also to know what factors are going to matter in the valuation that you end up getting. So that's always a great place to start. Like, get that strategic plan in, write those few things that I mentioned down, but have a conversation anyway. Just hear what they have to say. Say, I'll circle back, and then
So
take the long route.
I use those conversations as education.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually turn the conversation around and ask them what they were looking for, the multiples, who they were looking in the industry, what made something attractive versus not attractive. And I would typically find out things about my competitors as well, because they've been talking to them. So they want to hear what you have to say, I would flip it.
Yeah, there's a few questions like, oh, what information are you looking for to help validate the number that you're getting?
I would ask them straight out what their multiples are. And what's the higher side, what do they need for the high side? They'll hesitate to tell you, but just be, right? They want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. I also advise when you're looking internally to see what works and what doesn't. Again, if you're a buyer, you can look at what's the specific thing I'm buying, right? Again, that might be I'm buying literally just the fact that they have these 3 customers that are really difficult to get in the door with, but once I get in the door with them, this is recurring revenue. That's your focus. That's what you're basing your value on. And on the flip side, if I'm selling, like, what is the actual value of my business? And you'd be shocked at just that question. Like, a lot of people don't have a compelling answer. They might have an answer, but it would be like, oh, I have great clients and they really like me. Oh, well, that's a red flag because you're not going to be around when I buy the business, right? So that answer does need to be compelling enough to justify what you're looking for, and it could be something that they're not aware of right at the get-go because they're not going to know until you're able to demonstrate. You might be saying like, oh yeah, my business is valued at this, but the real estate that we're operating around is actually valued at this, and it's been rezoned for this type of development. So when you're buying something, this is actually the value of what you're buying. I might not know that if I'm not looking in the right places, but you need to know that so you can represent it, and that's a huge driver of the conversation. But any other last questions? If you do have some, or if you anticipate having some, if you're too shy to speak up, if you want to talk to someone who's not me, all of the above, the QR code has some opportunities for you to drop your contact information, and then I believe Sherry will hopefully be able to get you some of mine as well. I should have some business cards, but thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
So we have 15 minutes break, so we'll move at 2:45. Okay, we are going to get started.
Nice to meet you.
Nice boy. Hello, we're going to get started. To me, this is I call this to be the main course, but it's probably not appropriate. So this is the star of the show. But before I introduce our panel, I would like to introduce our moderator, Sonia Magnan. She's also an accountant and she's a lawyer as well. Sonia is a good friend of mine and has been an EO member for 12 years. And she's a tax lawyer and owns a full-service CPA firm as well as an in-house law firm. Sonia has over 25 years of experience helping clients buy and sell businesses and has helped EOers with their exit as well. And in her own business, she has done 4 successful acquisitions of other CPA firms. So welcome, Tanya.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be here. It's a great topic, and thank you, Cherry, for organizing all of it. So, and thank you to our panelists. I'm going to do a brief bio introduction of our panelists, and then we've prepared 10 questions. And because this is like the think tank supreme of knowledge and experience, I'm going to ask everyone on the panel to please try really, really hard to keep your answers to 3 minutes. So think of like a forum. Think of a forum. Think of the forum updates where we keep it to 3 minutes. And that would be awesome. And then also by way of format, there will be some questions that I will ask 2 of you to answer, and some questions all 4 of you will answer. Don't get offended. It's just because we're trying to, get as much value for the time that we can. So that's the format, and then we'll do a Q&A afterwards. So everybody write down your questions, and we'll do a Q&A afterwards. So brief bios. We will start with John Fraser. Successfully exited his Amazon-based e-commerce business with a total payout of around $15 million. Specialized in niche products like small appliance, sporting goods, and light industry items, ideal for FedEx and UPS. So very niche, unique opportunities that he can speak to. He structured his exit by breaking the business into 3 parts and maximizing the payout by selling each part to different buyers. Exiting during the final Trump administration of the first term, prompted by rising tariffs and market uncertainty. So good timing to discuss about that. And John offers a unique perspective on selling business in parts, finding the right buyer for each asset, and preparing for transition beyond the sale. So that's our John. Dimitri is our next panelist, and he has completed 4 M&A deals ranging from $30 million to $150 million USD. Sold his company Wild Apricot to private equity fund, and then again in a subsequent resale. He led software product companies with $10 million to $40 million in revenue, and employees ranging in 100 to 300 employees. Dimitri offers deep insight into the private equity playbook, short-term focus, cost optimization, and operational disciplines. We have a lot to learn from that. He brings a candid behind-the-scenes perspective on valuations, adjustments, deal risk, and life after the transaction. Then we have Byron. Byron founded a software company in 1992 and ran it for 25 years before selling in 2022. He transformed his business over a 5-year period from being, as he says, just okay to being great, and ultimately selling. Byron built a culture of execution and accountability using dashboards, scorecards, and quarterly reviews. So he'll share some insights on that. He hired a CEO and stepped back from operations a year before the sale to focus fully on the exit, and engaged an investment banker to run a competitive process resulting in over 90 potential acquirers being entertained. So lots of experience there. And Steve, last but not least, Steve built an exceptionally successful insurance business from $3 million in sales in 1991 to $160 million gross revenue, making it one of the top 15 largest in Ontario. He received an unsolicited, irresistible offer from a public company and sold his business for 10x, achieving a 9-figure exit. As part of the deal, he requested to stay on as CEO and continue to lead the company because he was not ready to retire at the time. Successfully transitioned from founder to executive leader under new ownership, and Steve brings a deep experience in scaling, negotiating, and integrating a business for sale. So you've got a rock star panel over here, and we're going to dive right into it. I'm going to ask John, what are the first signs that it might be the right time to sell a business in your experience?
Okay, yeah. So the one thing that you brought up was it wasn't a sale that I was looking to do. It was really market conditions. When I started this business, my whole plan was to actually run it for my life, right? It was a business that when I started, it had high growth potential, it was high risk. Took on that risk, it was profitable, and growth looked like it would be almost infinite. But then what I learned was that whenever you have high profit margins, you're attractive. Other people are attracted to that industry as they compete. And so the sign for me really was diminishing profits over time. For the main driver was like Sonia had mentioned, was the Trump tariffs that came in 2016. So tariffs is a big topic these days. But actually, it was his first term is where he started to introduce them. And most of our manufacturing and our product acquisition was done offshore. So we had Taiwan, which was okay. It didn't get hit by tariffs so much, but the stuff that we had manufactured offshore in China was heavily tariffed. So that was really it. So for me, it was just not something that I was targeting to do. It was just real market conditions. And here's the thing: when you're used to high profits and you start to see profits erode, you really start to think, okay, what's the effort level that I have to continue to put into this business to get diminishing returns? I kind of consider myself to be a little bit of opportunistic. So I got into the business because I saw the upside, and it was something I was interested in, but the upside started to fade. So I'd say that's, for me, that was the trigger.
Thank you. And Byron, can we get you to weigh in and answer that? I'll ask the question again. What were the first signs that it might be the right time to sell?
It was taking too much money out of the business.
It was taking too much money?
No, like I don't mean it in that way. I mean, I was being a chicken shit, pulling cash out when I should have been doubling down. I'd lost my nerve, and I regret it now.
Okay. All right. The next question I'll have Stephen Dima answer. How far in advance should an owner start preparing for sale? Steve, if you want to take that first in your experience.
The day you start business. and that's the honest truth. I wasn't for sale, so much like John, I wasn't looking to sell, but I was running my business like I could sell it any day, right? So focused on the balance sheet and the financial statements. They're the scorecard, right? Business is a game. It's like a sport. And you keep score with your financial statements. So managing your financial statements, especially your balance sheet, is the most important thing to prepare you for selling. You can't scramble in 6 months and fix bad issues on your balance sheet. So the day you start in business is the day you should be thinking about selling. You want to grow, you want to scale, you want to, profitability, number one, but manage your money, manage the business like it's for sale if someone walks in next week, you're prepared.
Sounds good. Dima?
In my case, it was 2 years. It's 2 years in advance to prepare to sell business, because original strategy was like to focus on grow and then keep a profit and actually 10%. Just keep it that, but grow. It's software business, it's clouds, SaaS, and so on, hyper growing. So, and then we starting to looking to sell, and we realized that it's not enough to show 10% profit, like just psychology level, people estimate like EBITDA, right? It's multiple. So, and took us for preparation, finance, and so on, all these scorecards to put in shape 2 years actually. And private equity look back for 2 years. So that's exactly the same thing. A year is not enough for them. Just show us 2 years tracking.
Thank you. All right, next question we're going to ask all four of you to answer. What are the key factors, in your experience and opinion, that drive valuation up or drag it down? Valuation question, John, go ahead.
Yeah, so one that I just want to touch on because it might be different is it really does, what Megan mentioned about finding the right buyer, that is super, super critical because it's sort of like that joke of, take a car to a salesperson and it's like, I'll give you $1,000 for it, but take it to a connoisseur and like, oh my gosh, it's $1 million Ferrari or whatever, right? So I would say that that's really the most important thing is finding the right buyer.
Yeah.
Okay. Dima, what about you? What are the key
Yeah,
factors
we
driving up
got
and down?
that offer like 100 times different between, less than we actually sold, right? It's same company, same numbers, same CIM, same presentation, same numbers, everything, but 100 times. That's kind of the things. And there are fine tuning, I call it, right? It's a profit growing, there's all these things, but it's marginal stuff actually, very small one. Firstly, it's a strategic investor, you need a strategic buyer who willing to pay real money.
Very good, Byron. What about you? What, in your opinion, drives valuation up or drags it down?
When, or, I don't know about when, but
No, not when. What are the key factors?
What are the key factors?
that
Thanks.
drive
Got it.
valuation up or drag it down?
sorry, I heard when. Well, I would look at your industry and know what it's valued at. So mine was a SaaS company, and there's something called Rule of 40, which is profit plus growth. So our target in the company and all the variable compensation was tied to Rule of 40 targets, and just drove that like crazy. And everybody got paid on it, so that's all we talked about.
Mine was 30 in the moment of sell, and it's attractive. And after sell, I'd make it 40.
Yeah.
That's very attractive if we talk about this number. But I don't think that everybody familiar with this number.
No, it's a great number though.
It's a percentage of growth percentage plus profitable percentage. Let's say you grow 20%, you profit 10%, so your number 30. It's not percentage, it's 30. 30 kind of magic number. So if I have 40, you get 10x of your revenue, not EBITDA.
And those are interesting valuation methodologies, industry specific, right? So when you're in software, when you're in tech, gambling industry, for example, has very different metrics of valuation than a manufacturing company or a company that sells widgets, right? So there's different valuation methodologies for different industries. We can do another session on that at some point. Okay, yes?
So a couple things. If you're a crucial part of the business, that's going to create less value. You want to run a business, you want to scale a business that's an enterprise, not a business that is so dependent on you that the buyer, I think Megan touched on this, the buyer looks at it and goes, well, if Steve's out of the picture, what's that? Where are the clients leaving? Are key employees leaving with them? So that's one thing. Get out of your way. When I learned to get out of my own way, that's when my business really started growing. I joined EO in 1999, and I was a $6 million business when I joined. And I grinded it out to 8. And when I got to 8, I was 6, but I couldn't get past 6. And I did something that changed my life in business, and personally, by the way, is I went to what was called then the Birthing a Giants program. It's now called EMP. Changed my life. I left there with permission to think bigger, so I did. And I took it from 6 to 12 rather quickly. And then along the way, everything in EO I learned allowed me to grow my business. So went through several roles in the organization, and to the point where I served on the global board for 3 years. And my business was running so well without me, I was able to take my business from 12 million to 48 million while serving on the global board, traveling 15 weeks a year, because I learned through everything I learned at EMP and in EO was how to put together a great management team. So that's an important ingredient to having a high-valued business. If your management team can run that business with you there or without you there the exact same way every day. That's a tremendous value driver.
I think Steve just answered 3 of the questions.
I'm sorry. I've been in EO since 1999, as I mentioned, and I'm an evangelist for this organization. I've seen people come and go to YPO, just leave, go to that high society.
There we go.
What I learned at EO and the friends I made in this organization have driven the value of my business exponentially. So, as Sonia said, I got a stupid offer and I wasn't for sale, but I look back and I go, it's what I learned in this organization.
That's awesome.
So just on that, like, I actually stepped out of the business about a year before I sold, just to correct that, but it was because my forum asked me why I was still working in the business. Otherwise, I'd still be working in it.
I love it, I love it. All right, well, I'm gonna ask Dima and Byron this question but Steve's already commented on it quite in depth. How can, it's just how we roll. How can a business owner make their company more attractive to buyers before going to market? So how can a business owner, Dima, get you to start that. How can a business owner make their company more attractive to buyers before going to market?
Yeah, in our case, we taught to get this thought leadership on Google. So to be like well known on market and this industry name. In that case, you kind of get approached. You don't share your company numbers, metrics on internet, right? You're sharing like your wisdom, right? All this content for your clients and so on, actually for free. So we made our website, our company, a source of free information. So it's like spread it, and we were on the market long time, and then we got some attention. That's kind of how.
Excellent. What about you, Byron? What was?
I would just echo what Steve said, and just run a fantastic company that doesn't need you and network like shit with strategic acquirers.
Excellent. Okay, very good. John, I'm going to ask you to answer the next question. In the process of due diligence and negotiation, what emotions and personal factors were you experiencing? I'm going to ask you guys who answer this question to specifically focus on emotions and personal factors, because there'll be another question that will focus on other areas of the process.
Yeah, well, I think for me, just given the circumstance, that it was more market-driven and less choice. There's some sleepless nights there for sure. Seeing, and really what it came down to was just the mountain or the workload that would have been required to fight this market condition. We had like 5 warehouses, 3 of them in the U.S. to try to, sort of circumvent some of the market conditions, and like what other measures would have to be taken in order to, to keep the business. So I think for me it was sort of more of a little bit of a depressed state, but then all of a sudden just the realization that okay, once I made that decision, then that's the direction I'm going in, and then I felt confident to go down that road. So.
That's fantastic. Dima, what about you? In the process of due diligence and negotiations, and you've
let
done
me
this
be honest,
multiple
anger.
times.
That's most intense feeling that's communicated with estimator, private equity guys, different how they approach your business, how they sound, how they treat you. That's honest truth.
Okay. All right, so the next question I'm going to ask all 4 of you to consider. What are some of the creative deal structures that can help maximize the sale price and or minimize taxes that you implemented in your transactions? So creative deal structures, maximizing sale price and maximizing your take home. So who wants to go first? Steve?
So 20 years ago, I started working with, I think, one of the best tax lawyers in the country. And we started planning for an exit. And it didn't happen for 20 years, but because of all the work we did 20 years ago, I was able to have a very, very tax efficient exit. You know, the old saying is, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. So if you haven't done that, seek out some great advice from people that are experts in this area and start planning for it. So, of course, the obvious is put the asset in a family trust. And my kids were listed as beneficiaries as well as my wife and I. That creates $6 million of tax-free exit. The other thing we did was we structured a hybrid sale. So the day before we closed on the share purchase, we carved out half the business and sold it, same buyer, sold it as an asset. That created a capital dividend account, which allowed me to take significant millions and millions of dollars out tax-free as a capital dividend. So that we had to get a little creative with that, but I spent money and got an opinion from CRA so that they couldn't come and attack me after. I've seen that happen a million times with exits, is CRA doesn't like the way something was structured and they come back at you. Worst thing in the world can happen to you because you got to pay the tax, fight to get it back. It's not, let's wait till see how this works out and then you pay or you don't pay. CRA is evil when it comes to collecting tax. And then the second thing, I took a big chunk in shares. So I will eventually pay tax when I liquidate those shares, but again, within the tax structure that I was allowed, I took the maximum in shares because a public company, Intact Insurance, actually bought me. So all those shares, they've grown exponentially. They've grown over $100 a share since my deal. So I'm making money on the shares, but I don't pay tax on those shares. So when you're looking for a potential buyer, that's a big consideration, that you can take shares tax deferred, and you trickle the money out over a period of time. So I had a very, very tax efficient exit based on work we did 20 years ago.
Very good, excellent. I've structured a few deals like that as well.
Yeah, so there you go.
There's
a great resource right here.
I have the downside of the family trust, though.
Say it again?
I have the downside of the family trust.
I've seen that too. Go ahead.
So I had an earlier exit and I used my family trust and my kids' capital gains.
Yeah.
And I spent all the money before they were 18. And when they were 18, they found out that I used their capital gains. That was an interesting family discussion. So the only thing that I did, and I think all of what Steve's describing is, yeah, absolutely amazing, is I aimed at a higher multiple knowing I would give it up, but I gave it up by saying, okay, I won't take it, but I want you to hold it as retention bonuses for my key executives. So I swapped it out of my take to tying it to the key executives to be retained. And I negotiated out an earnout, but what they insisted on was that I would not lose any revenue over the course of a year. So those earnouts or those retention bonuses were also tied to maintaining the number. So because I was out of the company and out of control, this was a way to make sure the company was run by the people who knew how to do it, and that this so-called earnout target would be hit. And the key employees made a lot of money. So yeah, that was just one thing.
Steve shared that we were partners who sell business. Part of our partners use these set of approaches: family trust, this thing to sell main business assets and so on. That's efficient stuff. And then personally, I took most efficient way. I wasn't Canadian resident that time, so actually that's a working approach. So you could be tax resident of 0, theory. So it's most efficient. And you can return back to Canada, and for CRA, what you got when you was abroad, it's not taxable. It's a free.
Just stay away long enough.
So you want that deleted as well?
Tax lawyers.
Just stay away long enough.
That's amazing. Yeah,
I wasn't too savvy with setting up trust and that sort of thing, but the one thing that helped with the business and the reason why we parted it out was because with online selling, momentum is massive. So with Amazon accounts, eBay accounts, we had Walmart.ca and .com accounts. If you have a lot of movement and a lot of sales, you stay at the top of the ranks. So we had to make sure that we never fell off or lost that momentum, because the fight to get back up was almost insurmountable. So we would always keep heavy amounts of inventory. And when the profits were good, we could, no problem, we'd just take the profit, just return it into inventory. So when the tariffs hit, the one thing that we had in our favor is we had multiple warehouses in the US with inventory that was pre-tariff and tax. So I would say that's kind of a way of right, circumventing those costs. So.
Very good. Thank you, guys. That's very insightful. Next question again for all four of you. Many deals are structured with an earn-out. Some are with a vendor take-back. Some get shares in the acquiring company, as Steve did, and or commitment to stay on after the sale, as some of you have done. What are your considerations or factors in negotiating such terms? So Steve, did you want to start with that?
Yeah, if you have all the leverage, you're calling the shots. So I wasn't for sale. I was for sale, but not at that time, right? I was building to sell. That was always the plan. But I was about 5 years early. They came to me 5 years early. So didn't want to sell. They put a number on a piece of paper, and I looked at it and thought, well, maybe I could sell. And then I said, guys, I thought about it for a while. They approached me in January, and by June, they hadn't heard back from me. And they said, Steve, like, what's going on? And I said, well, I'm just not ready. And they asked me, well, what's your ideal scenario? And I said, well, I'd like to stay on. It's not an earn-out. I got all my cash up front. But I'd like to stay on. I'm not ready to leave. And I want to make sure I have a transition period for my key management, because they helped me build it, to be honest. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have been half as large as we were. But again, they go, well, what's it look like? And I said, well, here's what I want as compensation. I want my golf membership paid. I want a car allowance. I want an expense account. And I said, yes. And I go, well, geez, you're not really giving me a reason to say no, are you? So when you're desperate to sell, you're screwed, right? And I did 14 acquisitions along the way in the last 12 years. And as soon as I knew the vendor had spent the money, I knew the deal was done. And I wasn't taking advantage of anybody. I went to every deal I went into had to be a win-win, right? I was never going to screw anyone over. But when I know the guy in his mind had bought the cottage, bought that big boat he's always wanted, or he wanted a Ferrari in his driveway, I knew that's what he was going to do when he closed. The deal was going to close. And so often, I can give you many examples from EO members over the years that private equity companies come and they buy them, and the game they play is about a week or two before the deal closes. They say, oh, we got to discount this 5 points. And, well, you're done. You spent the money, right? You're in your head, you've exited. And that's how people get screwed over. Entrepreneurs get screwed over all the time in those scenarios. So keep the leverage, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Very good.
Long answer to a short question.
Very good advice.
Do you have a book?
No.
No, serious. That should be the title of your book.
No, yeah.
I'm not joking.
Okay.
All right.
Any publishers in the room?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't need to sell, and I wasn't working in the business, and it was a bit of a cash machine, so I could walk easily. There was 5 requirements. Couldn't be a consolidator. Had to give my employees more than I could. Had to hit my multiple target. I didn't come with a deal. No earn-out. We kind of settled on that one. And no trading. So trading means they come to you in the last minute and they start fucking you over. So it's just guaranteed. But from the start of every conversation, and every conversation I had with the investment banker, it was, if there's one trading moment, I walk. We're done. So if you anchor on that really hard up front, you can eliminate the problem.
What do you mean by one trading moment?
Trading, so I looked at your books and your AR days are over 100, 120. We want to take,
Negotiating terms.
yeah, exactly. So they're gonna, like, especially private equity or VC, they're just gonna come after you hard, and they're gonna wait for the moment. They're gonna find something, and they're gonna say, you got this obscure tax risk, we won't pay you the multiple we told you. But if you set a hard anchor on no trading, they're gonna think twice about it, because if you walk and they put all that time in it, anyways. And I didn't even have to have the conversation. When it started, the investment banker said, he's been clear with all of us, you push this, he's gonna walk. And they didn't, so.
Again, that's leverage, right? That's having leverage.
Well, having like, but anchoring on what is your non-negotiables. Because you don't wanna waste your time, and you don't wanna waste their time. So if you're really super clear up front and you anchor hard on your non-negotiables, it's gonna be really hard for them to move you off of it.
Yeah, best negotiator is the one that is willing to walk away.
Yeah, well, that, to your point, if you don't care, then you don't care, right? So.
Very good. Dima, what about you?
That's with guys, see, you have to have this leverage to power and personal readiness to go away from this room in any moment. It happened at least four times in all these negotiations. Initially, the prospective buyer, they're offering like, wow, we pay any money, what you want, and so on. That's nice letter of intent, nice numbers, but through this due diligence process, negotiation, all details, kind of, okay, let's reduce 10% here, okay, escrow here, roll over 15% here, okay, there is a net capital you can keep in company here, a couple millions and so on. That's kind of every time, and including this time, this question about who will stay in company, right, after acquisition. So that was personally, I stayed in company. So 3 of my partners go away, and then I didn't want to stay in company at that moment. It was like good leverage. I say, private, no way. But they say, okay, we need somebody. So we have a very difficult conversation with partners who will stay, right? But then we include this private equity in that conversation, open and honestly. If we will not agree to stay somebody, deal off, right? No deal. And they agree to give me extra good bonuses, extra or some ESOP and so on. It's kind of good package actually. I got actually for next exit, I got significant amount because of that, because of these kind of things that they offer me to stay in company around that. That's leverage, just to say, no, I'm ready to go. Even I invest half a year. It's all management team waste all time to this due diligence process, presentation, all this stuff. Actually, it's a lot of money I lost there, but still like this tendency. Okay, no way.
Excellent. What about you, John? Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, it's okay. No, I think I got it. So for me, it was basically there's because of market conditions, shrinking profits, shrinking revenue, the business selling it as a whole wasn't attractive because everybody would see that, and it's like kind of sinking ship it would look like. But there was 3 things that were very valuable. One was onshore inventory. So this is safe inventory that's already been imported in. All the duties and everything paid on it, and we owned it. So there was no financing or anything. It was just pure profit at that point. Second was our accounts. So Amazon, eBay, all of that in really big accounts in good standing. Small compared to American standards, but really big in Canada, like some of the biggest ones in Canada. So they were valuable. And then the other was really our processes and our integrations. So like software integrations on how to how we were integrated with these platforms like Amazon, eBay. So by taking those 3 and separating them, that's where our value was. Yeah. And the longer it took us to do that, the more our overhead wasn't going away. So it was important to act fast and to take advantage of that. So
I just want to ask you a follow-up question there because you didn't touch on it in any of the other questions that were posed. Because you sold the 3 separate segments of your business to 3 individual buyers, did they all approach you, or did you target?
Good question. Yeah, great question. So I targeted the inventory. Targeted the inventory because that's actually how I grew the business in the early days. Was I would look for people that had onshore, like I'd say 80% of our inventory was we'd bring over, and the other 20% was I was looking for other companies that had onshore inventory that wanted to get out. And the first one that ever happened, they approached me. They're like, "Hey, I'm getting out of this. I see you sell a lot of similar things." They had trailer loads of stuff. And oh my gosh, it's incredible, right? I can give them a good price for it because it's already here, and we had the mechanism to sell it and make good profit. So I took the exact same approach. I started looking on Amazon and eBay, what are some big sellers that would be interested in the stuff that we have in our inventory. And then I had a business coach, actually, that sort of specifically worked with e-commerce and that sort of thing. And he said, "Hey, I've got a client that would be interested in your accounts because they manage large inventory, like warehouses and whatnot, and help them sell." So that they took the, they bought the accounts, yeah. And then actually, then it was one of their customers that actually took some of our employees and our processes and our integration. So.
Very interesting, very cool. All right, next question. How do you choose the right exit team? This is the team of your advisors, business brokers or M&A advisors, your lawyer, your accountant. How did you go about choosing your exit team? Steve?
Well, I've been working with my advisors for years, so I didn't have to assemble a team. I just said, "Hey, I've got an offer. Let's start looking at it." But you know, one of the most tremendous resources you have is this organization you're in. I think there's 20,000 or so members worldwide. You can tap into anybody that's in your industry, or you know, somebody that's experienced something very similar that you're looking at, and get tremendous resource, tremendous advice, experience share for free. And don't undervalue the value of that. It's tremendous. So I don't remember the last time I was in a forum. It was many years ago, but because I've got an informal forum of members I know throughout North America, and we get together a lot, bouncing stuff off of them. One of my best buddies down in Naples with me, he just went through an exit. So we were able to talk back and forth, and he's in the appraisal business in the US. So not very similar industries, but we were dealing with the same thing. So having that network of EO members is a tremendous resource.
Very good. Byron, what about you? How did you assemble your exit team?
I asked the EO Canada thing for an investment banker and got one.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then I had a long-standing relationship with my law firm and accounting firm. That was it.
Very good. What about you, Timo?
We hire a good experienced CFO for that kind of area who had this experience and knowledge in private equity and so on. It helps a lot to prepare. But other stuff was a mess. Just kind of we hired some agency help us to sell business. They just go away some moment and it lost in some. And we do most stuff ourselves. And yeah, so we use a lawyer company. So just nothing specific except this CFO in advance who worked in company a long time, 2 years.
What about you?
Yeah, well, yeah, that business coach that had a great relationship with the buyer for one of the entities. So that helped build trust there. Actually, Richter, who was a sponsor of EO at the time, actually helped me evaluate my accountant to see what his capabilities were in terms of dealing south of the border. And that's basically, and then they just brought in contract law or whatever we needed for specific things. And we're good.
What about timing? As a lead up on that question, and maybe some people in the room are curious too, at what stage of the game in your exit strategy do you bring in that expert team, whether it's a business broker, lawyer, an accountant? Like, when did you bring in your team of external advisors?
I'll go first just because I did a bad job of that. So, contrary to what Steve said, I probably kind of when shit hit the fan, so to speak, right? I wasn't, and I'm the example of what not to do, but
what not to do very successfully.
Yeah.
Let's give credit where credit is due.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And a lot of that really was high risk in the early days of where profit, profit was a reward for taking risks.
So then timing, like finish off then, in terms of timing of when you brought in different experts.
Yeah, it was like, look at the market is starting to collapse, and
no, timing in the offer. I mean, within the.
Okay, yeah.
When you decided to exit, at what stage did you involve external experts?
Yeah, probably 6 or 7 months too late. Like kind of after, it's like, hey, we've tried a bunch of things. This is gonna be a huge mountain to climb. We kind of weathered the storm, lots of sleepless nights just to see what was happening, and then it was like, okay, we gotta start to put things in motion.
Okay. And Dima, when did you bring in your team of outsiders, other than the CFO, which was inside?
Just the moment that we started negotiation, we got some offer, and then that moment even before contacting that potential buyers, we got some from your network actually.
Oh, excellent.
That's just some guys who kind of help us to figure out at least, initial like what the kind of not professional guy but with experience. Then after a couple of weeks we just hire different agencies.
Excellent. What about you, Byron?
I got approached by a strategic, and then I brought in the investment banker because I didn't want to do a sole source transaction. But I was lucky because our business is really disciplined, so we basically ran a data room all the time. But I wouldn't do it that way. I would, map out where I want to be at the multiples I want to hit for my sale, and I would bring in that investment banker 18 months to a year early and start to really build out that data room well in advance.
Okay. What about you, Steve? Timing?
Yeah, well, as I said, I had a team I've been working with for years, so I'd usually call them once a year or so, say, hey, got a deal I'm doing. So it was just that last call was, hey, I'm selling, right? So the team was there. Great team. And one little experience share I'd say is don't look for cheap lawyers and accountants. It's not worth it. Hire the best expertise you can afford. Don't cut corners. For I'm confident, I paid over $800,000 to my lawyer on my exit, and it was worth every cent from the money I saved in taxes. And so don't shop around expertise. If you get referred to someone who's great at what they do, use them.
Yeah, I just want to say I want to say one thing on that too is I think that a lot of people, when we start a business, it's because we love the product or service. We may not have the best sort of business acumen overall, and I mean there's external resources to help get you there, right? So.
Excellent. All right, next question. What is the biggest emotional or practical challenge for owners after selling? What advice would you give to someone who's just starting to think about their exit? So this is the after selling emotion and what your life looked like. Who wants to go first? Toss up.
When I looked at my financial statements, my personal financial statements, it was elation. So I was like, yeah, this is good. So anything that was negative was kind of like, yeah, but look at this.
Does your wife feel the same?
My wife's an entrepreneur, so she's still running her business. She's got a couple of travel agencies under the Expedia brand. So she wants to sell too, but is going to stay working until I exit, and I'll never retire, but when I exit the business fully. She feels pretty good.
Awesome. Byron, what about you? What's the biggest emotional or practical challenge?
Yeah, when I sold, I actually had absolutely no problem. According to Dave, it should have been 5 years, but 2.5 years. So it's 2.5 years now. It's your math. I'm getting bored. So Dave says statistically it's around 5 years you get bored.
No, everybody who was in my forum
Is that what it is?
sold after about 5 years, like I'm bored now.
Okay.
That's my liver.
So obviously I've got ADD or something like that. So I'm a little.
Well, you got the EG, the entrepreneur gene.
Thank you. So no, I was fine for 2.5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
More than fine.
And then you got the itch.
Well, I'm just getting a little bored now.
Getting the itch, okay. What about you?
I mean, it's not the issue to see your cash flow, right? In this bank account, it's really helping, like uplifting, right?
Buys a lot of therapy.
Yeah, it will. And also, personally, I spent more than 2 years in new environment before I was entrepreneur. It's my own, like my partners. That's it, our decision, and then work inside this hierarchy, private equity, all this thing, these M&As. It's really different experience. I actually burned out after that. After 2 years, okay, I got a sabbatical after that for a couple of years. And after these 2 years, I started getting bored. And actually, also here is in background, I would say like losing identity, like things, who I am without my business, right? I built this business 10 years, right? It's all my family, kind of my employees, it's my family, my child, right? This business, right? And then this child, I go away, and then who I am, what I'm capable of, and so on. That's interesting, kind of difficult. This I had.
I hear you. What about you, John?
Well, I had a kid that same year.
Oh, wow. Yes, that's right.
So and then another one a couple years later, old dad here. But relief really was one of the big things, because it was a stressful grind. But within, I'd say, a year and a half or so, I was looking to purchase another business. Like I was kind of getting out there and seeing what was available. That kind of led me down to what I'm doing now. Became an EOS implementer. I figured I've got to learn from my mistakes and try to figure out how I can, be a master at running and growing a business. So so that's and then that kind of took off, and it's been going well. And so that's kind of been my life, kids and this. And,
Excellent. If you could give one piece of advice to business owners who want top dollar, what would it be? What would you have done differently in anticipation of a future sale? Well, you know what, let's break that up into two questions. I think we have time. If you could give one piece of advice to business owners who want top dollar, what would it be?
Well, figure out what your long-term strategy is. Is it to transition to family members? Is it to transition to employees? Or are you going to sell? And I think the answer to that question depends on which path you want to go down. So if it's to sell, like that's why I didn't have any emotional attachment. I always knew I was going to sell it someday. So we were building something, but we were going to sell it. So plan to sell. Even if the sale doesn't happen for 20 years, run your business like you're selling it tomorrow, and keep your focus. The biggest trap an entrepreneur has is they take too much capital out. You shared it, but it sounds like your business could sustain it. A lot of businesses can't, right? Make sure your balance sheet, especially your balance sheet, is healthy. So start working on that 20 years earlier than the sale if you need to, but that's what you need to do to get top dollar. Know what you want, and then work towards the end goal.
Good advice. What about you?
I agree completely with that. I see so many people don't really know why they're in business. So I agree on that.
Well, because we're unemployable as entrepreneurs. Can't get a job.
You can talk to my foreign mates. Don't talk to them. No, the other thing is, though, I would put an operating system in place immediately and be obsessive about it. If you're not going to be obsessive about it, don't waste your time or your money. But there is so much return from putting EOS, scaling up, 3HAG, any of these systems in place.
We used scaling up.
Okay.
I can repeat what I heard from private equities who came to buy our business, and actually it's repeated two things for our business. It's laser focus. That's their phrase. They remember. They laser focus on your market. What's your vertical? What your clients are so. Be clearly again laser focused. And many years, and it's great. So they love that. And the second one, excellent operational efficiency. All these books or balance sheet, EOTO, operational efficiency. So that two things like made our business really attractive. We got a lot of exactly that two things. So, yeah. But my own takeaway from all of that: work on growing market. I mean, if market growing at 20%, 30%, 50% per year, doesn't matter what quality of your business. If it's stable, that's operational efficiency important. So, but it's market growing 100% per year. That's nobody cares about your efficiency.
Until the tide goes out.
But your goal to sell it before, right?
John, what about you? What piece of advice would you give to business owners?
Yeah, well, one's personal, but which I'll explain. But the other two is, I do believe in. So operating systems, I obviously believe in them. But there's two stages. There's self-managing, and then there's self-growing. And I got my business to self-managing, and it was incredible because I did not have to be there, and it took me by surprise. To be honest, it's like I'm not going to come in today. All right, I'm going to work 4 days a week. I'm going to work 3. I'm going to work 2. I'm going to work 1. I'm like, I don't even need to be there anymore. Like, this is now a self-managing company. We're moving our way towards self-growing, but we didn't quite get there because of market conditions. But so that, and then the third one I would say is branding. Really, like I mean, the more that was one thing that we didn't spend enough time on because we were fast to market, best price, move a lot of inventory. And the profit margins were great, so we didn't have to really worry about branding so much, but that would have created some more sustainability, which we didn't have. And I think that when you have a powerful brand, there's dollars that come with that you otherwise wouldn't. I'll just give you a quick example. We had one product and we sold like hundreds of thousands of these things. And we found somebody else that was selling 3 times as much as we were at 3 times the price. And it was just because they had a brand. And I never even heard of the brand, to be honest. So I think branding is a powerful way to up the value for your.
That's great. So I think maybe you'll answer the next question the same or different. But the last question that I wanted to ask is, what would you have done differently in anticipation of a future sale when you were first starting out? Would that be branding or would that be something else?
Oh, yeah, I don't even know if I can answer that because selling was just not on my radar at all. Like I wanted to pass this, like grow it, pass it off to my kids and so yeah, the selling was more of a function of just market uncontrollable variables. Kind of what we're experiencing now, right, with tariffs. I'm sure none of us saw this happening in the way that it has, right? But yeah, so I don't know. That doesn't really answer, but.
Dima, what about you? What would you have done differently in anticipation of the sale when you were starting out?
The future will be different. So I don't know, actually.
The future would be different.
Yeah, I mean, it's past. It was past, right? Now, current landscape and software are different tendency, way how to make whatever, different things. So I don't know. Actually, it's nothing. So I could speculate, like, okay, be prepared. 2 years, 3 years, make your book clear, nice. There's a rule of 40, achieve these nice numbers, and then everybody wanted to buy you. But it's actually you want to do that not for yourself too. Actually, it's not connected to sell, right? Maybe that's to be mentally prepared and do specific action focus to sell your business. Maybe the whatever, sorry.
Okay, what about you,
Yeah,
Bob?
I mean,
Anything you would have done differently?
Probably fire myself.
Fire yourself.
Well, I was at it for 30 years. 25 years I fucked around. 5 years I figured it out, and I should have done it in 3. So I think I should be fired.
It's a good thing you kept yourself on. You
Yeah.
invested in yourself and you won in the end.
Yeah.
Very good.
It all took 25 years.
what would you have done differently?
Yeah, great question. If we're honest with ourselves, we're often the bottleneck in our business because we can do everything. We can do it better than the people we want to hire. We can do it better than our employees. Get out of your own way. Get out of your own way early. Put managers in place. Hire the best people you can afford. And focus on what, as entrepreneurs, we're great at. Visionaries, building, driving for success. That's what we do best. We're not in the weeds people. We just aren't. But we don't figure that out. Once I did figure that out, that's when I saw a hockey stick curve in our growth.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's it for my questions. And now we can open it up to your questions. So who's got a question? Yes.
It seems like for all your businesses, people were after you. If you're having a business that maybe isn't as attractive to other people, what can you do to try to make yourself more attractive to get more viewers?
So is there anything you can do in your business or your business does that your competitors don't? Like if you can think about what makes me different than any other, you're in the clothing business, right?
Yeah.
You used to be in EOTO when you came back.
Yeah.
Years ago. What can you do different in the clothing industry that your competitors can't?
I think it's having my customer base and getting a new clientele base. I think that will make me more attractive. It's not the store, but it's the fact that I have this community of men that I can.
And your brand.
And my brand, yeah.
Yeah, but if I asked Harry Rosen that, he'd tell me the same thing.
But he doesn't have the new younger guys.
Well, he's got grandkids now, right? And he died. Really, what you need to think about is like everyone in the insurance business, what makes you different? Well, we've got great service, we have good prices, and well, bullshit, everyone does that, right? So we have to look at our business, how do we, and there's thousands of insurance brokers, right? So what makes people deal with us? Why do they want to deal with us? It's what we did that they didn't do, right? So I had to look long and hard at how can we separate ourselves from the guy that goes, we got great prices and great service and good people.
So what was it?
That's a table. Well, so on the commercial side of it, we looked at, we're going to help our clients become better businesses. So for example, 2 weeks ago, I brought in one of the first employees at Southwest Airlines, and she was the director of culture. And so we brought her in to speak to our clients about culture. How do you grow your culture? Southwest Airlines has one of the best cultures in any industry. And so she was the one that built it, Ann Rhodes. And so our clients go, well, why are you teaching me about culture? You're my insurance broker. And I go, see, that's why we're different. We did a magazine, and that magazine was 80% business topics. And by the way, if you look through our magazine, it's all EO people, right? So it's John DeJulius, it's Warren Rustand, it's, go down the list, Jeff Smart from Top Grading. And we'd get them to write articles. And so my clients are going, well, this is great stuff, but there's not enough insurance stuff. That's the point. We are different. So our brand promise to our commercial clients was, we're going to help you become a better business. And that's one of the things I learned in EO. EO helped me become a better business. So why wouldn't I take what I've been getting all these years and give it to a whole community that's not exposed to that stuff?
Very good. Excellent. Anybody else want to answer that question before we take another question?
There are 3 tools that I use. One is something called a market map, which you don't usually put strategic acquirers on. So put it on there and then figure out all the relations to influence them. The second one is a framework by StoryBrand called Brand Scripts. Really help you to define your target market. And then based on that really clear definition, do a customer attribution framework, which is basically about finding white space between you and your competitor to target that very specific market that you define with StoryBrand. And when you do that exercise, it becomes really clear as to how you create white space and you attract the strategic. A lot in there, but look it up, it's all there. I didn't make it.
Excellent.
I and I trained at GPT.
Say it again. Yeah, taking notes.
So,
make sure it's in the book.
No book. There's 3 frameworks that I think are really, really good. One is called a market map, where you basically lay out who's your competitors, where are your customers, what are the distribution channels, associations, all these influencers. But I've never seen it before, is put the strategics on the map. And then figure out all the relations between them. Where are the strategics? How can you catch their eye? What are they in need of? All of that kind of stuff. The second thing is, for us, this is why it took me 25 years, I had 118 different industries in 110 countries. So we were all things to no one. So StoryBrand really kicked our ass and made us focus hard on one customer, which was K through 12 education in North America, period. And we understood that customer inside out. So because we understood them so well, you could do this framework called a customer attribution framework, which says what are 3 to 5 attributes that the customer is buying your product on? What's really super important to them? How do you rank against your competition? How do you rank yourself? You draw a line, you're probably all sitting on the same line. Then you look across those buying decisions as to where you can make an investment or a divestment. Don't do both. Do both, don't do just one. And create white space between you and the competition. And then map out over 3 years what you're going to do every quarter to make that white space. And come back to it every 90 days and tune it up a bit. But those 3 things were unbelievably instrumental in getting focused.
Good, excellent. Any other questions? Yes.
Steve, you talked about don't take capital out. And
Speak up.
sorry, I was saying you touched on don't take capital out. I want to just kind of speak to that a little bit more and hear a little bit more about that, because I often, when I speak to entrepreneurs, I find that we don't pay ourselves first. Like,
Yeah, so what I was saying was,
that's what it's getting at.
sometimes we take more out than the business can sustain.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. If, like, Byron here, he had a business that he could take a lot of capital out, it sounds like he did. But too often, as entrepreneurs, we live a little larger than the business can sustain. So it's important to make sure a business is financially healthy. Because maybe your cash flow is good. What happens when it's not? Do you have the resources? Do you have the reserves? And a lot of times, that's why we see those failures that Megan was sharing with us earlier.
To Steve's point, our target was 1 year of operating in reserve, and it just sat there. Because after 25 years, there was just too many shitstorms.
When I was on the board, EO had a $5 million reserve, and I thought, like, what in the world do we need a $5 million reserve for? And Bob Stray, the executive director at the time, said, yeah, we just don't know what's down the road. I said, why don't we just deploy that capital and grow the organization? And how is EO going to go under? Members pay dues every year. Like, what's the challenge? And then COVID hit. It was like, I was stupid. That was the smartest thing EO could have done, because it had
sell insurance.
EO should have had a better insurance policy. They had a bad broker.
But the rockstar organization that we are, we actually grew membership in COVID.
And survived.
That was astounding.
And survived.
Under you.
So,
Man. Just so everyone understands, Steve Curley is one of our oldest EO chapter members from Toronto, a huge advocate for EO, and he's done a lot for this chapter and for EO globally, so we should all be really commending him and thanking him for everything he's done for the Global EMP program. Steve ran that for many years. I think you retired a couple years ago
just
from that.
a year ago.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic program that you touched on that many of you should consider joining as well.
I'd say it's not an option.
You have to apply for it.
You should go to EMP.
We only accept 60 people, I think, each year.
Yeah, 68.
68 people each year. So it's open to every member globally. It's a great program.
Very cool.
Touching on that further, what I was really getting at is, even if you're not selling, what I've always done is I've structured the business where there's an opco. I've always taken capital out of the business and made it, and put it to work in other ways, so investing in other industries, other, like I bought a real estate and so on. And I've always kept a normalization chart, so should always be positioned for sale, right? So I have it because I take a lot of money out, but I also make sure the business is healthy, so that if anyone ever came knocking on the door, I can show them, yeah, sure, my bottom line is only showing this, but here's my normalization. You can see what the true value is. Just other little tricks that I've been doing all along.
I ask about Ed about capital. So we always kept 6-month salary for employees in cash. No investment because it's risky. Just cash in bank always half a year. The ideal for our situation, we achieve some moment a year. So no revenue, a year to keeping team, and eventually it's worked out very well. Private equity, they analyze finance, go, wow, it's very healthy. That's kind of, it's not, but it's point of this kind of good scorecard. Like, okay, that they doing right, they keep that business health. That has helped us to keep ourselves from taking money from business, right? That's okay. You have to keep that. Yeah, that's.
But dividend it up to a hold co, so they don't grab it on the acquisition.
So,
Yes.
Byron, you mentioned those 3 frameworks, right? Were you the one, that had the discipline to drive those frameworks, or you had somebody help you? Because, like, for example,
No, we brought in a business coach, but his words was he never met anybody so obsessed about it. But I think because of after 25 years of oscillating, I was just absolutely.
So it was you though. You were the one obsessed, right?
But you as the founder have to believe in that thing,
right?
110% and lead by example. Because if you don't, nobody else is going to have the discipline.
Any other questions? You had a question, yes.
So,
Alex, long time no see. My former member.
This is forever. So I struggle with how much equity to give up to our employees and leadership team, and I haven't come across a framework, Byron.
Okay,
or
but
anything.
I'm the wrong guy to ask because I wouldn't give up equity. I gave up a percentage of sale.
Really, so nothing.
I wanted to always be able to easily fire somebody.
How did you incentivize?
Phantom shares. Phantom shares.
Basically,
no equity.
What's phantom shares?
They're shares, but they're not voting. They have no say. They can't stop you from doing something. Shareholders have tremendous rights. If you have 1% of outside shareholders, they can stop you from doing a lot. So phantom shares give them the upside of the profitability. You say, okay, you've got 3% of the company in phantom shares, so they get 3% of the profits, if that's what you're inclined to do. But I wouldn't give away equity.
I guess the goal is to retain them up to an exit, right? And how do you do that?
I put aside 10% of the sale price for the executive team.
But without giving up anything.
No, and they had to be there through the exit.
And they knew that.
Yep.
They knew.
Yeah, so just to follow up on the phantom share suggestion, it's what he's saying, the same thing.
Yeah.
Phantom shares legally actually come into legal right to equity on the moment of sale.
Yes.
So if you leave the company before, you're entitled to nothing and you owe them, the employee, nothing. Whether they pay anything in between, that's a stock option. That's like an employee incentive plan, but there's not equity tied. It's not tied to an equity, the compensation factor. But the beauty of phantom shares is that if they stay till the exit moment, that's when they're entitled to an equity compensation piece. And that's what phantom shares legally are.
And a new owner actually usually looking your scheme and offering similar, maybe better for them. I had this situation 4 times. So they're looking, okay, what's the option for employees? They getting this money from exit, right? But new owner, okay, I don't want to lose the new management team, right? Okay, same package for them. So it's kind of connected.
And sorry, can you speak to the quantum, like in percentages of how much?
Generous 10% in our case, but it's
to everybody, like
no,
leadership plus
it's,
or?
yeah, leadership, whole kind of amount.
I gave 10% to leadership and 5% to the whole company.
Yes.
Cumulatively, not individually.
Not completely, yeah, not completely.
But the 5% was based on tenure pro rata.
So phantom shares are different than options. Right?
Yes,
Those are two
yes,
different-
yes, yes.
First time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Jason.
Yes?
At what point do you tell your key people that you're thinking of selling? Like I'm thinking of selling seriously.
A lot of views on that.
We kept things to our, like, small group of people, 3, including me, right till the end. And about a week before we pulled the trigger, I sat down with everyone individually and laid out the plan. It wasn't like, hey, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not leaving. That was part of why I wanted to stay on. I wanted to make sure they felt secure. And by the way, I'm working towards making sure everyone gets looked after. So probably the more people that know, bigger the chance is that word gets out. You don't want that.
Anybody else have any other?
So we kept it in short, small group. And at the moment we got a letter of intent. After that, we prepare communication, story. That's kind of huge part and big ache for me, headache for me and for team. A lot of struggles we got it in company, in team. That's about that. Everybody was feared. It was awful situation. So we managed then. We built this story, explain these. What's going on, how we were transparent, maximum we could be, but yeah, we kept before letter of intent, and after that we invest a lot to communication, explain everyone personally, in general, all our communication through this half a year, all details about them, and yeah.
Did you lose any key staff in that process?
No, unfortunately.
Anybody else have any, John, did you have any comments on that? Like, when did you let people know?
Kind of right away, because my situation was different. Kind of needed them to help us kind of through it. And some of them, like I mentioned, had an opportunity to move to the new entity, so they were good at that. And if anybody at that point wanted to leave, it was kind of fine because we kind of already knew how we were gonna go about it. Yeah, especially an inventory sale. That's not. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to hold them back from moving on and finding something else if the writing was on the wall, so to speak. So, yeah, and actually, this is more complex. We kind of backfilled people that left with a contract company that had the ability to take their role. So, yeah.
But what I'm understanding, but none of you did it until the deal was on the table. It was close to done, or it was almost there, right?
Well,
so it's not like you're planning in advance and affecting the culture of the business.
No, like I put it on the table in the compensation plans for everybody, that on a sale, here's your participation.
Right.
So everybody knows what they're getting in the sale.
That's SIT, though. That's only senior leadership, not sure.
No.
Everyone knew?
Yeah, so there was 5% set aside for all employees based on tenure. So, and all employees got monthly profit sharing as well, so, and a monthly all hands was to review the financial statements together. So I think full disclosure, now I had a separate negotiation going on, which was complicated, so I couldn't talk about the fact that we were entering it into a sale. I think those circumstances sucked, and I wouldn't do it that way. I would be just real clear right from the beginning that it's starting. But everybody is going to do well in it, and the number one category was that nobody aspired in the transaction. So they're all there, and they're all making more money now.
They had to stay till the end, the close of the transaction to get their money.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the biggest incentive, because what I see in a lot of the transactions that I work on is that people get itchy and they leave. Like if the employees, it depends who they are, how senior they are. Like in Steve's case, 3 people knew. For many small size businesses, people shouldn't know until the deal closes because they will leave. And then you have no business to sell. But it depends on the nature of the business. If it's a technology platform, they don't need your employees, then that's great. But if it's, you know, a service business and they can't transition the business without those people, so it's very industry, I find in my experience that it's industry specific, whether you can tell anybody or everybody. And what Byron did is actually quite great and generous, is that you lock people in and they have to stay. They can't leave you if they want that exit bonus, if they want that exit equity.
But there was a CEO of the company who was staying to run the company. The whole thing was set up so employees would do better.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what you want to achieve in a sale. If you want somebody to be a consolidator and just fire sale everything, they're going to exit.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure.
So I'm not sure it's industry specific. Like I'm software.
Well, it depends.
So
yeah.
Keeping those people is key. No one's left, and they're all in much higher positions, making more money now. So
for sure.
I think it can be structured so everybody wins.
Right.
And a lot of mortgages got paid off. Kids got sent to school. It can be good for everybody.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good.
So, slight aside to that. So let's say that in your team you have people that, you know, you put this out, is this on exit you'll get this much kind of thing, but then there are some wrong people on the team. So how do you manage that?
You should have fired them already.
Yeah.
Right, but let's say you haven't.
And then you should go back and fire them today.
That's true. The best time to fire someone is when you first think about firing someone, because it never gets better.
Yeah.
Never. Unless someone's got an example. My experience, never gets better.
May I share my experience? So I wasn't brave enough to fire everyone that I should have to fire before the deal. But I made it just after the deal. I don't know why, maybe psychological barrier, but it's not my business, whatever. I don't know. That's why I fire 30% of team, actually. That's, I made like tough decision, like, okay, look at all these numbers, but, and let's say, I mean, engineering team, sorry, not the whole team, it's engineering team, that's 30%. A little bit less, but that's, you get, I realized that, okay, I was wrong. So that's...
Now how do you trade off the severance part of it?
You're paying for it anyways. You're paying more. Like you're paying in an annuity that's just never ending.
That's true.
Yeah, like it's... Now, I mean, you're always going to have a very small, tiny percent that's on the cusp that you're trying to see if they're going to make it. But if that is a big percent that's just hanging around too long, you're slowing your business down and you're putting the whole team at risk.
Right.
Like you're captain of the boat and you basically got a whole bunch of holes in it that you're not fixing.
We have time for one more question. Yes.
Okay, this question is for Steve. So you said what you did differently was you wanted to help your customers grow a better business. What would you say is the number one thing you did to help them make a better business?
Access to experts. And so, like I said, the seminar is one example, the magazine's another example. We were in the middle of building a website for our clients they could access, and we'd have a library of information. Kind of pulled the plug on that just before we sold. It was expensive, time consuming to maintain, but I thought that would have been a great resource. And you know, if a client left, we'd turn off their key and they go, oh, wait a minute, I was getting some value from that. But you know what, when we brought, you know, everyone knows Warren Rustan. When you bring Warren into a room and nobody's heard him before, and he talks about leadership, people are blown away. Or John DeJulius about customer service, or Pascal Finette about technology, or Jeff Smart on top grading your employees. We get used to it in EO because we get access to so many great thought leaders in certain subjects, but most business owners don't, unless they're an EO or YPO, they don't get exposed to this kind of stuff. So it just blew people away. I mean, everyone's seen or heard Vern Harnish, right? First time you hear Vern, you're blown away, like, wow, where did this come from? So you imagine a business owner that's never been exposed to somebody like Vern, hearing him for the first time. So.
Steve just gave another plug for EMP. They're all...
Excellent. All right. Well, Cherry says we're out of time, so thank you, everybody.